Hello, everyone, and welcome into our Picks and Parlays Power Hour brought to you by BetMGM. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Who is this new face? Who is this girl? My name is Hannah Mears. You can follow me on Twitter at HannMears. Right there, see the link, that's my spelling. And I'm really excited to be here on this beautiful Friday talking all things NFL with you guys. And we will bring in soon Scott, Chip, and Craig. We're going to be talking all things Niners, Vikings, Eagles, Cleveland, Falcons, and Jets, running backs for fantasy football. I know a lot of you are going to be curious about that, as well as Cowboys and Chargers. Remember, BetMGM is our sponsor for the month of August. So click the link in the description and use promo code MORNING to get your up to $1,000 risk-free bet for our new accounts. You can also get all the guys back on picksandparlays.net using the promo code NFL. It saves you 20% off of the entire site. I'm really excited for my first episode with everyone, getting to know all of you. So please interact, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Make sure you're here with us. You're going to be seeing more of my face if you'd like on Picks and Parlays. But now I can't wait to bring in my first guest. It says Scott the Bulldog Rickenbach. I'm curious to learn more about that. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I have to know the Bulldogs. Tell me more first.
Well, it has to do with just really having a tenacious personality more so than my stature per se. But yeah, just always relentless with this sports betting stuff. It's a battle, as you know. People like to say it's a marathon, not a sprint, and that is so true because you're going to have ups and downs. But the key is, of course, how you're doing long term, and you have to be relentless and really stick with it. And that's where my Bulldog nickname has stuck around over the past couple decades, really.
All right. Well, you also know who's going to have to be relentless. Some of these NFL teams that we're going to get to see. We love that there's games going on. It's preseason. And let's start out with 49ers at Vikings. Tell me, Scott, what do you want to talk about this game? Are we talking about the over-under 39.5 to start?
Actually, yes. That's what I want to talk about is the total in this one because when I looked at this matchup, first off, just have to say that in this preseason, we've seen such high scoring games so far, just general trending toward the over. And in fact, even in the first game this week, we saw that it had that chance late. I mean, if you were sitting with an under ticket, you were biting your nails late to see if that one was going to stay under or not. I mean, it was crazy, but Seattle was really pressing in that game. So just seeing a ton of scoring so far in this preseason. So the question is, will it continue here in this matchup? And one of the things I looked at is the 49ers. They've averaged 23 points per game their last 8 games. They're coming off a 28-21 win. That's their last 8 preseason games. And last week, they gave up a lot of yards on defense, but they were fortunate because they got some turnovers, and that's what kept the Packers from scoring more than they did in that game. But one of the things I also like is in the preseason, as you know, Hannah, you see so many different rotations and different guys coming in and out. The 49ers had 3 different quarterbacks throw a touchdown pass in that game. And of course, that means we got some good balance with that offense coming into this matchup. And the Vikings now 6-2 over-under record in their last 8 preseason games. So they've been trending toward the over. And again, we're seeing so many overs so far in this preseason that's the way I'm looking in this particular matchup as well.
Yeah, I liked the quarterback showing for the 49ers. I think that was really promising, especially in Trey Lance. I mean, he looked phenomenal, came out very sound. So, but what you were saying was the depth that they have. That's very important when you're talking about the over here, because a lot of times you're looking at your starting quarterback and saying, well, sure, if he was playing the whole game, they're going to score a lot of points. But we've seen with all of those individuals, and like you said, with the Vikings as well, pretty high scoring so far. Now, let's talk about who's favored in this matchup. I believe it is the Vikings, right? At 4.5. Is that what I saw?
Yes, which surprises me really. I mean, in the preseason, I tend to lean toward the dogs. Of course, you can't just can't just blindly play every dog. But to me, this is a little bit of a pricey line, especially when you look at how that San Francisco offense did play in that first game. And again, the Vikings defense also has allowed 25 points per game in their last 4 preseason games. So the Vikings defense. So again, there's some question marks there. To me, it's hard to lay those kind of points. I mean, yeah, they're at home, so you get some shading with the line because of that. And that's why we're maybe seeing this 4.5, but I If I had to play the side here, I definitely would be leaning toward the dog. I mean, you see so many preseason games that are decided by 3 or 2 tight games, and you'll get some blowouts occasionally, but I can't see one with this one, especially with the way the Niners offense was quite consistent in that last matchup. So
also keep in mind, I think you're going to be able to see some Cousins in this game as well. I think he'll be back from COVID, so maybe that's why we're leaning toward the Vikings, because he didn't play. They might be trying to play him at a couple more snaps just to test him out. So maybe that's why they're favored a little bit when you're thinking about putting a starting quarterback in there. Any thoughts on that?
You are 100% correct on that. And here's what's interesting about that, Hannah, is that you'll see sometimes I love to fade the moves like that when they happen a lot of times, because there'll be some extra shading for that. And the thing is in the preseason, at the end of the game, it's just not going to matter that much. I mean, we're going to talk in a minute about another matchup, the Eagles game, and they were up 14-0 in their first game of the preseason. And then they got outscored 24-7 the rest of the way. So even if Cousins is out there, Vikings get some early points, doesn't mean it's going to hold up all the way. So sometimes you actually get some value the opposite way, what you would expect when something like this is happening. But you're right, there could be some extra, some extra put into the Vikings line for this because of the Cousins situation. And yet that might actually mean value on the other side. Interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one that a lot of people have their eyes on come Saturday. But on Sunday, we have the Eagles at the Browns. Now, this one, I know we can all say as of the news today, it gets a lot of question marks with the Cleveland Browns. The over-under 35.5, I'm putting some question marks for. I don't know about you. I know that both of these teams, like we said, pretty high scoring in the first preseason games, but I like the way the Eagles are trending this season, why they're also favored. I don't know. Can Cleveland put points on the board? All things that have been considered this week, Scott?
Well, that's what's tough about this matchup. But, when I look at games like this, again, it's when we look at the Eagles, they looked so great early in their first preseason game. They were up 14-0. Then they got outscored 24-7 the rest of the way. So you're right. Can the Browns, score enough here? But when you look at some historical information too, this is crazy. This is what's crazy about this matchup, in my opinion, when you look at some of the history here, because the preseason is a different animal from the regular season. If this was a regular season game, I'm looking at the Eagles and I'm looking at them hard with them laying just 3 points on the road. But again, it's not. It's a preseason game. And the Eagles have only won once in their last 8 preseason games, only one straight up win. And then you look at the Browns, they've only lost once in their last 8 preseason games. And that one loss was by a single point. So if you're going to go ahead and take the Eagles and lay 3 points here, you're basically trying to fade an 8-0 trend on the Browns, because they haven't lost a preseason game by more than a single point in their last 8 games. So again, I like to look at history more in the preseason, because it tends to tell us a little bit more about how that coaching staff approaches the preseason. So like when you're talking about the Eagles, of course, we're only talking about last season that they had the new head coach, but still, again, the Eagles they didn't get it done last preseason either. And I think this could be another case where they put out a good, strong first half performance, and then they fade in the second half. And so I would have to take Cleveland plus the points in this matchup. Again, I know it's maybe one of those that, Hannah, we call the ugly dog theory, and this could be one of those ugly dogs, especially, based on the current information that's come out with Cleveland. But still, I would lean toward Cleveland plus the points in this matchup.
Yeah, and I think even though with all the question marks with the Cleveland Browns offense, their defense is still pretty solid. They have some veterans on that roster across the board that you would put a lot of faith in. So yes, the quarterback might be a little shaky, but there's a lot of talent on that roster that can do some things. So I like that, Scott. I'm here for it. Thanks for all your bets. I know everybody's excited. And don't forget, you can get all the guys' bets on picksandparlays.net using the promo code NFL. Saves you 20% off the entire site. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining me. Any final thoughts before you go? The NFL preseason underway again.
Well, just wanted to make one more comment, because you were talking about this with Cleveland, and it's so true. Their defense got a ton of pressure last week and got a bunch of sacks, and also got a couple of interceptions. So that Cleveland defense is a force to be reckoned with. Like you said, it's a pretty talented roster, especially on that side of the ball. And so something to keep an eye on for sure in that matchup. And then overall, by the way, Hannah, you were asking as far as like general thoughts about the preseason. I do think some of this scoring is going to level off. It's not just you can't just, that's what's funny. Generally speaking, we're seeing value now because the totals got pushed up after what happened in week 1. Now you're going to see that there can be some extra value on some of these unders. You can't just go blindly play unders, but just keep an eye out for that. If you already liked an under, now you're getting some extra value too, because the totals got pushed up after week 1. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind, because the same thing happens in the regular season too, that we see. If you see a bunch of high scoring games in week 1, the totals go up in week 2, and yet then that's when you start to see some unders. So it's always something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We're going to keep all of that top of mind. Thank you so much for your expertise, Scott, and thank you for all of your picks. Again, this is Picks and Parlays, our Power Hour, brought to you by BetMGM. Thank you, Scott, for joining us. You're the best.
Thanks so much, Hannah. Thank you.
All right, you are watching Picks and Parlays Power Hour. I'm Hannah Mears. I'm a new face here and very excited to be with you all. It's brought to you by BetMGM. BetMGM is our sponsor for the month of August. Use the promo code MORNING for up to $1,000, your first risk-free bet for all new accounts. And these guys, man, awesome insight here. You can get all of their bets on picksandparlays.net. Using the promo code NFL saves you 20% off the entire site. I'm really excited. We heard what Scott had to say. Now we're going to move on to Chip. He's talking all things Falcons at Jets. That's coming on Monday. Yeah. Hello, Chip. Love your background there. We got a flaming football through the American flag. You've got your Hawaiian shirt on. I mean, what are we? Are we tropical today on Picks?
Yeah, we're very tropical. Even though we came from South Florida to Las Vegas, it's just as hot out here, believe me. So, we got this Atlanta game, and Jets is kind of interesting to me. It's on Monday night, and how this may be the Jets' biggest opportunity to play on Monday night. Hannah, by the way, welcome to the show, Hannah. Glad to see you. Good to meet you. And
I'm so glad to be here.
No, I think it's going to be a great success for us all. So anyway, when you look at the win totals for the year, we see the Jets are at 5.5, and Atlanta's 4.5. Mm-hmm. And yet in this game at New York, Atlanta's favored. And to me, something, a red flag goes up here. Now, I know the Jets lost their quarterback. Wilson's going to be down for a while. But Flacco, he came in admirably, and he hasn't worked out all that well in his the scrimmages and the practices that the Jets are having every day. And Mike White, last year, you saw him coming up with a phenomenal game against Cincinnati. So the number still at 5.5 is larger than Atlanta, who's got Marcus Mariota, and Atlanta is going to have a dreadful year. They lost all their big guns, but they're favored here, and that's not logical to me. They're coming off a 27-23 win over Detroit. The Jets beat Philadelphia, which we weren't too surprised with, but I think Atlanta wins this game, and I'll tell you what, I'd play it on the money line because they are a bad football team, and I hate laying points, Hannah, with a bad football team. I'll just be happy if they win this game. They're 2 now. I think it may go down. It'll drop a little bit. Maybe they're $1.30. You might be able to lay $1.20, $1.25 by game time. But, I know that the practices for the Jets with the quarterbacking has not been so positive with Flacco working out because I got my connection with the New York crowd, but Atlanta, I just can't see how they're gonna survive the season. But they're gonna have a preseason win here on Monday night.
And everyone's probably telling you, they just beat the Lions. Well, that's the Lions, a team that has yet to really prove that they are a true competitor, even though everyone wants to get Hard Knocks fever and jump on the Lions train. And I do like what Dan Campbell's doing over there. However, I think when you look at it, I'm kind of agreeing with you here. Atlanta, they may be struggling a lot this season. And not that the Jets have a ton of merit at this point, too, especially losing their quarterback. It's a hard bet to make in general. Just 2 average teams looking to prove themselves. But, yeah, we'll see with that one. I think you make a lot of good points there, especially with the question marks with the Jets linebacker situation as well. Right. They struggled in their preseason game. There's a lot to go here. But when we're talking about just this game in general, maybe to help people decide on bets to take, are you liking what you're seeing better from one offense or the other defensively? What team is going to be stronger?
I expect the Jets to be better this year than what we saw in the past 2 seasons. But still, without their quarterback right now, their offense hasn't been in sync. They have a whole bevy of running backs, and those seem to be the only healthy people. But, the running game nowadays in the NFL doesn't carry the weight that it has in the past. And you got to be able to throw the ball downfield. And I see, like, the Jets will be better. I think Wilson's going to improve, and he can play football. It's just he's got to stay on the field. Injuries have really hurt him.
Yeah, they definitely have, and most recently more than anything. And I know one thing you wanted to add on here because you were curious about, we just talked about them a little bit in the last segment with Scott. So I know you wanted to talk about the Browns win total. Obviously, question marks everywhere with this team's offense. Over under 8.5 wins. Now, I think when we were talking earlier, it started at 9.5 this season. And everything that's gone on with Deshaun Watson, it dropped to 8.5. If it were me earlier this year, I was saying maybe 9.5, maybe less, but with a loaded AFC North, and then when you look at their schedule without a quarterback, that I don't know. I'm a little skeptical now, even though they have a lot of NFL veterans on this team. But you're the expert, so you tell me. Over under 8.5 wins, what do you think?
Well, they were 8-9 last year with an injured Mayfield, and even though they won the last game of the year against Cincinnati, and we know what they ended up doing, they're going to be without Watson for 11 games, but they have Kobe Brissett, I think, is going to be quarterbacking them. And you know what? He's very mobile. He runs, and this team runs the ball. They're a ball control team. Last year, they were number 2 in defense and rushing yards allowed, and they're very strong in that regard. Ball control. Their defense is tough. I think Cleveland could go over the total here because nobody's giving them a shot. No one believes that they have a chance. They're being written off by everybody. And, these guys are pros. And when you write a team off like that, there's just something that happens. There's an energy, there's a karma, there's a chemistry, and these teams seem to be able to put it together. I think 8.5 wins is still kind of high considering all the bad news we've gotten about the Browns in the last year. And you would think it would drop even lower. My first instinct was that 8.5 was pretty high, that in order to win that bet, they have to go 9-8, which is winning more games than they won last year. And now they're without a quarterback. So maybe the odds makers feels that their defense and their running game and their rushing defense will be able to keep them in games, and they'll be able to win a number of close games.
And don't forget, Jacoby Brissett is a pretty decent backup to have when it comes to finding someone with NFL experience. He has that. He's played in has started 37 games in the NFL. That's way better than relying on, let's say, you have a rookie sitting behind you. I mean, it's not horrendous for them considering the talent that they have surrounding him.
And it's better than having Geno Smith, that's for sure. So, that's the way we're going to go there. But so I think the Jets will be improved. I don't see any hope for Atlanta, and I'll take Atlanta in this game just because they're favored on the road against a team that for the year has been valued higher. I have to do it. I think the odds makers tell us the Jets may not be ready.
All right. Well, I like all your bets. I'm here for it. It was a pleasure to do our first show together, Chip, and best of luck with all of your bets. Again, you can get all of these guys' bets on picksandparlays.net. Using promo code NFL saves you 20% off the entire site. And don't forget, BetMGM is our sponsor for the month of August. You can get up to $1,000 of risk-free bets on first-time accounts by going to our BetMGM Sportsbook and using promo code MORNING. Thanks again, Chip. Looking forward to see if all of your bets hit this week. Thank you so much for joining me. We are on the Picks and Parlays Power Hour. All right, back into the Picks and Parlays Power Hour presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Hannah Mears. New face on the show, having so much fun already, talking all things NFL. And boy, am I excited for this next topic because we get to move away from the field a little bit and onto your phones, right into your fantasy football app, as well as talking some Cowboys and Chargers with Craig. Let's go ahead and bring him in for our next topic. Hello, Craig.
How we doing? I'm glad to have you. I haven't let the cat out of the bag yet. I mean, only some of the guys behind the scenes know about it. I've kept it under wraps. It was hard because we've been talking for a few weeks. So I'm glad we finally got you on board, and it's football time. So it's like a perfect time to be bringing in somebody you're a Steelers fan though. So that is the one, she had one strike. What is it, like the no whammies, like the show? Big bets, no whammies. It was like your one whammy, but you still have 2 left, so you're good.
All right. Well, sorry about it. I'm a Pittsburgh girl through and through, but I love talking all things NFL, all things football excites me. And I don't know which one you want to talk about first. I'm going to let you go first. I'm excited for fantasy football. So you pick that, or are we going to just go ahead and wipe Cowboys Chargers off the board first?
Well, let's talk fantasy football. I mean, I think there's, it leads kind of into what we're going to be talking about in the next game. So I think it'll be perfect.
I agree. And Craig, you have running backs for us. Now, this is always some people's biggest things in fantasy football. They want to get their best running back. And actually, it's, with running backs staying healthy, I think some of these picks may surprise some people. So we'll see. I'm excited. Let's stir it up. Let's see what you got going. Your top 10 fantasy
first of
football
all,
running backs.
I mean, 20 years ago when I started playing fantasy football, this is back almost college years, maybe 25. But anyway, it used to be you would draft running backs. If you had to get 3 running backs, you would draft running backs 1, 2, for sure your first 2 picks, maybe even first 3, because running backs, you got the touchdowns, and that was prior to the dual threat running back teams, which almost everybody has dual threat running backs now. Very few teams in the league outside of maybe Tennessee, but we saw even last year with Henry being out. I mean, they had pretty good production when he was on the bench. So I think that's the thing that's changed now, is that you don't just have one running back anymore. So that means running backs, the importance of running backs now, you might pick them in your bottom 5 picks. So it's completely changed football in general, and of course, fantasy football, which is what we're talking about here with the running backs. So I think you have to look at it, there's 2 ways that you look at fantasy football. Do you try to hit it, try to get the diamond in the rough guy, or do you just go with what is going to produce? And so I think if you're going with what is going to produce, it would be like your tier 1 guys. And here's what I think your tier 1 guys are: Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Eckler for the Chargers, your boy Harris for the Steelers, Christian McCaffrey, even though he's banged up last year, Dalvin Cook, Mixon, and Kamara. Those are your top 8-9 guys. And then if you want to go, let's just say if you want to, really go out for that diamond in the rough guy, then you could go with like Saquon Barkley, hoping that he's going to stay healthy, Swift for Detroit, or Fournette, Aaron Jones even for the Packers. So those would be like my 2 tiers and how you play it. I don't know if you have a guy outside of course, I know if you're playing fantasy football, you're probably hoping for Harris. Mm-hmm. But do you have a diamond in the rough that you're looking at this year?
So actually it's funny because I was watching different shows this morning and people talking about, their fantasy football running backs just to see what they were stirring up. And some Ezekiel Elliott wasn't making some top picks, which was pretty crazy this year. Also someone said Breece Hall for the Jets. I believe it was Jamie Erdahl on Good Morning Football. And I don't mind that because I think he will be taking a lot of snaps, especially with their quarterback situation. Wilson being hurt, maybe they're going to rely on him a little bit early. Always fun to pick a young guy. I went to college with Saquon, so obviously I always want to put him up there and hope for his health. And obviously with their quarterback situation as well, they're going to have to rely on him. Hopefully he has an offensive line in front of him that can help. But yeah, if I'm going for it, I want to pick a guy like Najee Harris. I want to bet on the Steelers a little bit in this one. And the amount of carries he was getting last year, I don't see that changing too much, especially with the popcorn quarterback situation they have going back and forth.
The good thing, and I always if I'm looking at a running back that I'm trying to project as a diamond in the rough, I love guys that are like, hey, he's probably just going to be a 3rd down receiver, a guy that's going to get a lot of catches. And then, if he's in a 2-quarterback system, that other guy gets banged up, then he gets more carries on 1st and 2nd down. And then you can end up a guy, maybe your last round or 2, and now you end up with a guy that can, that's basically on your bench most of the year, but you can plug in and play. Like you said, Ezekiel Elliott, his problem is it's like he splits carries. I mean, and his production last year was way down. Especially if you look at his production compared to his salary, there's a lot of Cowboys fans probably not happy, and probably the owner as well. But I mean, that's just what happens. You have good years, you get paid. But now he's in that 2 running back system. It's going to be hard for him if they're healthy, which is always, the big question in anything, including fantasy football. Can they stay healthy? But I actually think Harris is going to have a really big year. I think the Steelers, I think we talked about this, off air, is the Steelers, I think are going to be sneaky good this year because Ben Roethlisberger has held them back, frankly, for a few years with his inability to throw the ball down the field, really short. Everybody could cheat up, and that hurts your running game. So now that whoever they put in there now, which I think they have several good options, will be able to throw the ball, and they will throw the ball down the field. I think that's going to loosen it up and give them some more availability to run the ball. So I like the Steelers this year. Especially I like their win total on the over. If you guys missed that earlier this year on Power Hour. So.
And not just throwing the ball, but having a mobile back, how that poses another threat in the backfield, opening up a guy like Najee Harris, because now you're also betting and taking that gamble on, do I go after Harris or am I going after this guy who can scramble and move and get some yardage on his feet on his own? So I think that's going to be something to watch out for this year. But a guy like Nick Chubb, what do you think about him making your top 10?
The Browns' problem is, obviously with Watson being gone, I think they're going to really struggle. I think they're going to have to win low-scoring games. So I don't think Chubb's going to be getting a lot of touchdowns. Also another, like most teams, a guy that, they split carries there in Cleveland. So that's a problem. If Watson was there, I'm guessing he would be at that, tier of 10, 11, 12, probably more like in the 20s for me as far as running backs this year. I think he'll have a decent year. It's just, you want to be able to push it in if you're playing fantasy football. You want to, hey, I want to have it on 1st and goal at the 1 yard line. I don't think they're going to be having a lot of those opportunities early because I think they're going to struggle to move the ball. I think they're going to struggle to score. And they're in a very tough division that if they get behind, it could be where they have to pass the ball, even though I don't think they want to. I think that's going to be a problem because they play such a tough schedule in a very tough division, does the Browns.
I have 2 more guys names, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this one. Another guy in the AFC North, Joe Mixon. Yep. And the reason I say that is the Bengals had put a huge emphasis in the offseason on protecting Joe Burrow and not letting guys get to the quarterback. And with that comes the benefit of a guy like Mixon also being protected and maybe having better holes to run through and more time to make decisions and getting better yardage. So he finished high, I believe, on the fantasy board last year, maybe at 3 points. So where do you see him making an impact?
He's definitely in the top 10. I think having an improved offense, last year, because our offensive line was so bad, he had to chip a lot and stay in to protect. I don't think he'll have to do that as much this year. So I think he's going to actually have more catches, which is always a bonus. You're not just getting the touchdowns and the rushing yards. Now you're getting receptions and maybe even some touchdowns off of that. I think he's going to have a really big year. I really do. I think Mixon could be top 3 or 4, to be very honest, when it's, it depends on how health goes with if Henry Henry stays healthy for the Titans. But to me, I just think the Bengals, and I'm a Bengals fan, so, sometimes you have to, it's a grain of salt, but I just think that improved offensive line where he doesn't have to stay in and always block, I think it's going to be huge. And I think they're going to score a lot of points too. So down 1st and goal where, he's going to get 2 or 3 cracks at it. I think that's a big upside for Joe Mixon and if you watched him last year, he did, as much as Joe Burrow was getting attacked, he was having to make 2 or 3 guys miss sometimes just to get back to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other name I wanted to throw out to you was Miles Sanders, only because I'm a Penn Stater. Yes, absolutely. But when we're looking at the Eagles this year, everyone's talking about the season that they should have and could have, but will they have? And does Miles Sanders fit into that puzzle at all?
He would be a diamond in the rough guy for sure. And it's hard for me to be a buyer on the Eagles as a whole. I think they have a lot of talent. Like if you just say 1 to 50 guys, I think their overall talent is great. It's hard to win in the league without a number, what I would consider top flight quarterback. I still don't think they have it there. Obviously, we'll see. Jalen Hurts could maybe take that next step. But I just don't think it. He doesn't have great accuracy. I think they're going to struggle. I think they're going to have to run the ball. I think Hurts is going to have to run the ball. Sanders, I think they'll have a decent year. Can they beat the Cowboys? I guess that's the question in that division. That's the top 2 teams for sure. But that's definitely a diamond in the rough.
I love talking some fantasy football, Craig, but a team you also mentioned that we do have to get to is the Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Chargers. The over-under 37.5 and Chargers favored by 3 points. So tell me, where are your bets with this game?
The Cowboys are tough figure because they're such a veteran team that's had so many injuries that's basically derailed several of the last few seasons that obviously if you're a Cowboys owner, if you're the Cowboys GM, if you're the Cowboys, anything to do, president, coach, you're a player on the team, you just want to get to the game one healthy. And this is a team that doesn't have great depth. That's like they have good top end talent. They don't have a lot of depth. They lost a key offensive lineman already to, in the offseason to the Bengals. Like, I think and they did not play good last week. Now, granted, they played mostly backups in Denver. I actually know somebody that lives in Denver. They said, hey, the whole Cowboys offense was out at the club. Several got escorted out because they were so drunk the night before. So I knew those guys weren't playing anyway, but I'm like, man, come on, guys. But the Chargers, at least they put up points in their opener. I just think, I think you have to go with the Chargers. They have, I think, better depth, which is always what I'm looking for in the preseason, especially at quarterback. So I'm taking the Chargers -3. I'm also thinking that the Chargers defense, they have a lot of high-priced guys there. I'm guessing you're going to see them very limited, if not at all. So I think they'll give up points as well. So I wouldn't talk anybody off the over in this game. We did see lots of overs last week. I think it was 14-3 so far. It was 13-3 last week on over to the under, and then the Hall of Fame game went over as well. So I wouldn't talk anybody off the overs this week. I know the lines have adjusted up. Scott talked about that, but I think this is one that it didn't adjust up enough. Say that quick, a few times fast. So I don't know how you feel about the Cowboys, but it just seems like when you're betting the Cowboys, they're always overrated because they have such a big fan base, I guess.
Let me tell you what I think about the Cowboys just based off of the first preseason game. 17 penalties is what I think about the Cowboys. They're not disciplined at all right now. Their backup quarterbacks are so unimpressive to the point where if Dak can't stay healthy, they can kiss a lot goodbye with this season. So I don't know. I think they're struggling offensively for sure. And like you said, they always have those big flashy names, but maybe like 4 or 5 guys. And after that, you have question marks. And it's because they're traditionally America's team, blah, blah, blah. Everyone wants to see this. The cheerleaders. Well, the cheerleaders have more talent at this point than the Cowboys have shown in the preseason. And when you're talking about over-unders, taking the over in this game might be hard, Craig. For some reasons in particular, last year, the Cowboys didn't score over 16 points in a preseason game. And the most the Chargers scored in a preseason last year was 20 points. So neither team really producing a lot in the preseason as of last year. But the Chargers have a better quarterback situation in their backup. Chase Daniels proved to be valid. That was one of the points I've read all over national media. Everyone was really satisfied with that. So, and they only lost to the Rams by 7 points last week? That's your defending Super Bowl champs. They should, in theory, have more depth. And so when you're comparing it in that way, I like you taking the Chargers in this for all of those reasons.
Well, the interesting part, the Cowboys, especially, they've had so many injuries at the quarterback position in the last couple of decades that you would think they'd have great backup quarterbacks. But Cooper Rush, Will Grier as your number 2 and 3, like no one's going to get excited if Dak goes down. So to me, I actually think we'll see those guys, and they're going to probably have to push these guys a little bit. And that's why I kind of was thinking over, is that they really need to show what they have, because I wouldn't doubt that the Cowboys maybe try to upgrade the backup, 2 or 3 situation quarterback, because anytime, when guys start getting cut or they go to the practice squad, you try to pick up guys that you can improve your team on. And sometimes just improve your team isn't going to adding the number 1s and 2s. Sometimes you pick up a guy that, hey, he's going to go on to our practice squad or be our 2nd or 3rd team quarterback. And you never know, with injuries in the NFL, playing 17 weeks now, you're always going to need these guys. So I like the depth at quarterback for the Cowboys, even though the Chargers' depth is better. I definitely think, Chase Daniels is the number 1 backup quarterback paid all time in football. The guy's, he's had I think he started 10 games or something. So it's but he always is on good teams, like the Chargers, where he's in good situations behind number 1 guys. And he's like, hey, I'll just hold this clipboard and count my money.
Yeah. Did you say you like the backup quarterback situation in Dallas?
Well, I like what they're going to do as far as pushing the ball down the field, because I think they need to find out. Will Grier, if you watched him at West Virginia, he put up some big numbers. at West
Yeah,
Virginia.
Will Greer was the man of the people. Like he was. And you go to West Virginia, you kind of have to be. I mean, he was.
Well,
but
he
as
does
far
have a
as
strong arm.
where else do you go with that?
That's the key. Because I would think Greer has more upside than Cooper Rush, in my opinion. So I think they're going to find out can he throw the ball down the field. I think they're going to try so. And like I said, I think he's going to be facing third and fourth stringers in the secondary for the Chargers, because they have when you pay these guys big money, it's not just the quarterbacks anymore. When you pay these guys big money, you do not want them to get injured in the preseason. Like, we know what Bosa can do. We know what Mac can do. We know what these guys can do. We do not need to see them out there past one series, if at all. And I think that's what leads to a lot of these points in these games. Cowboys just got to avoid penalties. And I guarantee they won't have as many penalties this week, because that's like almost a record in preseason. Even in preseason, 17 penalties is an absolute, but that speaks to their coaching. The coaching for the Cowboys, not great.
Yeah, I agree. And can they stay disciplined? I mean, 17 penalties, that's unacceptable at this level, and especially this early in the preseason. Now, thankfully, it is preseason, and we're not talking about our week 1 Cowboys, because then this would be a different story. These are your guys on your roster making the big bucks, and that's just absolutely unacceptable. So we'll give them the pass that it's just week 1 preseason and what they have to work with at the moment. But I like all that. I'm excited. NFL gets me all fired up, especially when we're talking about these kind of things. And I love preseason, getting to see the depth that teams have and exposing some guys as well, putting some in the hot seat. So bring it all on here. Let's go. Some preseason football and our Power Hour picks and parlays. Thank you so much, Craig, for coming on and playing with me today. And I hope all of your bets hit for the sake of everyone out there. Now, you can get all of Craig's picks as well as the rest of our guys, Chip and Scott as well. You can go to picksandparlays.net, use the promo code NFL, saves you 20% off the entire site. And our videos this month sponsored by BetMGM for the month of August. Click in the description below. Use the promo code MORNING for up to $1,000, your first risk-free bet for all new accounts. This is our Picks and Parlays Power Hour. I'm Hannah Mears. That's Craig Trapp. We were also joined by Chip and Scott. Great guys. Thanks for having me, Craig. And thanks for joining me on our Picks and Parlays Power Hour as well.